Hello, hi, I bet you are as delighted as I am to be back to this channel. My name is Ogochukwuonuoha, your usual anchor person, your instructor on IELTS, SAT, and General English. And the channel is Alfonso the Rothschild's Tutorials. If you want to be a part of the learning taking place on this site, all you need to do is type Alfonso the Rothschild's Tutorials on YouTube, Facebook, or Rumble. That's my handle. For some time now, we've been beaming our searchlight on the analysis of statistical models. That is the analysis of information presented in a statistical model, like statistical tables, pie charts, bar charts, line graphs of various kinds, pictograms or histograms, statistical maps, among others. On our immediate past video, we had one of our line graph analysis. It is a single line graph. And what we have today is a contrast to that, because what we have here before us is a multiple line graph. These statistical models teach us how to present variables of a given nature, perhaps variables of an economic, social-scientific nature, or of a commercial nature, to present such variables in as brief a way as possible is the aim of a statistical model like this. If some of the concepts that I am mentioning are strange to you, then let me begin by telling you that statistics means the presentation of values, presentation of data or information in figures. That is the reduction, perhaps, of information of an economic nature, like economic values of various kinds, or information on or data on scientific observations or scientific experimentation, or on social scientific issues, information on commercial issues, presented in figures where it will otherwise take several pages of writing to present the same information in words, and to take a humongous amount of time to go through before the essential issues involved can be extracted. Using a statistical model, for example, such information is reduced to a number of figures presented in a tabular form, presented in the form of a bar chart, or presented in the form of a bar chart, or of a pie chart, so that at a glance one can pick out or distinguish the key parts or the main features involved in such analysis. In that way, values of such economic or social scientific nature can be obtained at a glance, especially when details are not so important. Then, a statistical model like this would present such information in a summary. What is a variable? I have always answered this question almost in all my videos. I answer the question, what is a variable? Because it is variables of an economic or social scientific or commercial nature that we analyze using statistical models such as this. A variable is a value of an economic, social, scientific, or commercial nature that is capable of being reduced to figures and of being measured in absolute values. That is a variable is that value, a phenomenon that can be divided and be measured in absolute units. If this is what a variable means, then it is correct to say that there is no end to a list of what we can regard as variables. For instance, a variable, one example of a variable is the percentage of men of my age who, given the opportunity to earn more income by taking a part-time job of 2 hours a day. The percentage of men of my age who will opt to take such a job in addition to the main job that they have is an example of an economic variable. The percentage of working women who would rather resign and become housewives if there is an increase in income tax is an example of a variable. The percentage of young school leavers who would take to farming, that is, who would take to agriculture, if the government offers an incentive to such agriculturists, is an example of an economic variable. The quantity of a commodity, a given commodity, that is likely to be supplied at the commodity market, if tax on the production of such a commodity is increased or lowered, is an example of an economic variable. The number of boy-child enrollment into government-owned schools, if such schools become completely free, is an example of a variable. We can go on and on and on. These phenomena that I have mentioned are all capable of being measured. That is why we keep using the word the percentage of this, because they are all capable of being measured. That's what a variable is, and it is a variable of a given nature that we measure using a statistical model like what we have on the board. Now we focus on our task for today. IELTS Academic Writing Task 1. Now this lesson is directed primarily to intending IELTS candidates, but the knowledge contained herein is for everybody. It is relevant to secondary school students who will be required in their WAEC or similar examinations to present information in a graph form or some other statistical models. It is relevant to primary school students. It is relevant to university undergraduates, and it is relevant to company executives. It is relevant to company staff in the accounting and some other departments. It is relevant to a businessman or a businesswoman who has decided to find out how much of his yearly earnings is likely to be taken by recurrent expenditure and how much of it is likely to be taken by occasional expenditure. That is what we are analyzing. Let us take a look at what we have here. It is an example of a line graph. You can also call it a multiple line graph. Because the lines are many, they are multiple, you can call these lines curves. A multiple curve graph. How many curves do we have here, our lines? There are 5 of them. And it is about weekly hospital admissions. Weekly hospital admissions. Now, I always like to begin from the fundamentals. What are the fundamentals? There are some basic knowledge of a statistical model that we need to remember. A statistical model of this nature has 2 sides. This side of it, or this side of it, represents what is known as the vertical axis. So the sides are called axes. These are the left vertical axis and the right vertical axis. And this side and this side are the horizontal axis. The upper horizontal axis and the lower horizontal axis. However, figures are usually presented only below the lower horizontal axis and along the left vertical axis. The vertical axis can also be called x. It's called x-axis. The x-axis. While the horizontal axis can also be called the y-axis. Y-axis. The x-axis represents the dependent variables. So the figures that we have here, 0 to 300, are the dependent variables. The y-axis is also referred to as the independent variables. That the figures we find below the y-axis are referred to as the independent variables. So these figures, years from 2004 to 2018, are the independent variables, while the figures 0 to 300 are the dependent variables. Why are these figures dependent? It is because they depend on the years. The number of admissions in a hospital depends on the years. It is as the years pass that people could fall sick and be taken to hospitals for admission. The years, however, do not depend on hospital admissions to occur. The years come on their own naturally. No one is in control of them. But hospital admissions can be controlled by an improvement in medical health services, which could result in lower sicknesses. Are we following? If you like what we're doing here, then like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. So this is the graph. Having reviewed the fundamentals involved, let us continue. Now if you take a look at the x-axis, you will discover that the figures grow, or the figures increase from 0 up to 300. So the point of 0 is called the point of origin, because the values begin with 0 and then rise gradually or fall again down to 0. Then it is as the years are progressing Also from the point of zero origin, where we have 2004, as the years increase, the number of admissions in 5 hospitals also increase or decrease. Let us take a closer look at the graph. These are the curves, or you can call them the lines. The first curve, starting from above, the one that we can see there, is Badley Hospital. Let us read the caption of the graph. It says, the graph above shows the hospital admissions for 5 hospitals in a European country from 2004 to 2018. The curve shows the hospital admissions in 5 hospitals in a European country for a period of 15 years, spanning 2004 to 2018. So, the first graph that we can see from above is Badley Hospital. So, this point below the graph, we present the key to the understanding of the graphs, that is the line curves. So, this is Badley Hospital, and coming after it, coming down from above, we have Forcemeat Hospital, and the red curve represents Oxley Hospital, while the blue curve is Adlin Hospital, and the green curve is Stanton Hospital. As we can see, the graph wasn't designed by me. The source of the graph is www.islease.com. Now we move on to what we should do with this graph. That is called the prompt. We are told here to do what? Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. The prompt tells us what to do. That is our assignment. We are to present a report of the information contained in the graph. That report is a summary because it is not expected to give all the details, only details that are relevant. So we are to select and report only the main features, but we should also make comparisons where it is relevant to do so. Basically, writing a report of this nature involves a discussion of the changes among the values. And this entails being able to identify the highs and the lows and the intermediary values. That is, which hospital recorded the highest admission within the study or survey period, which hospital recorded the lowest admission within the period. What are the other hospitals? What happened to the admission rate in the hospitals between these two extremes of highs and lows? That is where the comparisons come in. First again, we take a look at the graph. At the beginning of the survey, what we can see at a glance is that Badley Hospital recorded the highest number of admissions. Good. It recorded the highest admission at around 275. And even though it experienced a fall, it also rose again. And by the time this survey period was coming to an end, the number of admissions was just below 300. That is the peak. And then after Badley Hospital, The next highest admission occurred in Fort Smith Hospital with a record admission put at around 250, that put around 225, around 225, that is at this point. Good, but this fell again, rose again, and then lay tangential, that is, its admission rate peaked at 200, and it is possible that it didn't rise any further as the final year of the survey arrived. And then we take a look at Oxley Hospital, which started impressively at just below 250 patients, but couldn't go beyond that. Instead, the admission began to plummet. It began to plummet. And as the survey period is coming to an end, it had fallen below 100 and had the tendency to fall even further beyond the end of the survey. Now, Adeline Hospital came second after Badley Hospital. Starting from just above 100 in 2024, it stabilized, fluctuating a little between 2026 and 2006 and 2008. But after that, it began to rise steadily. And as the survey period was coming to an end, it had already peaked at just above 250 and had the potential to rise further. Then we talk about Stanton Hospital, which started rising at above 50 patients as the study was beginning in 2004, rose above 100 patients, and stabilized while peaking again at 150 patients in 2012, but this is quickly followed by a fall to just below 100, after which it started rising again. So what do we conclude as the survey is ending? 3 hospitals are experiencing a rise in the number of patients they admitted, while the other 2 seem to be experiencing a fall after rise. Fort Smith Hospital and Oxley Hospital recorded initial rises but are falling as the survey period was coming to an end. Now, this is the analysis of the graph. But the oral analysis is one thing, and the written report of that analysis another. How do we now report? Report writing of this nature in IELTS often contains 4 paragraphs. It is not a rule. The paragraphs might well be 3 and sometimes 5. But overall, the word count is 150. But I need to clarify this like I've always done. 150 word count refers to the minimum, but not the limit. That is, the IELTS candidate is expected not to write below 150 words, but can write above it. Invariably, most report writing of this nature contain between 170 to 190 words. But please do not go beyond 90 towards 200. That will be overflogging the report. So you should aim at writing between 170 and 190 in order to cover all the areas of main features that are necessary. Good. The first paragraph is known as the paraphrase or the intro. In that first paragraph, you learn to paraphrase ideas, paraphrase information. That way, you indicate to the examiner that you are able to employ vocabulary of your own to present information that you read in an original format. This is the caption of the graph, and this is what the writer is expected to paraphrase as the intro or first paragraph. The 2 second paragraphs after the intro can be called the body of the report. In the second paragraph, known as the overall, usually because the word overall often begins it, often not always. In that second paragraph or first body paragraph, the writer will give his general view of the graph. That means, what can you see on the graph? Usually, the writer is expected to measure the highs, mention the highs, and mention the lows. Compare the highs and the lows. Without having to include figures. Figures such as the number admitted and the years are not to be included in the overall. Then after the overall, the second body paragraph, which is actually the third paragraph, comes in. This is where the analysis should be done. In this third paragraph, you analyze the graph closely, including figures where relevant, while also making comparisons. To do this very well, you need to have the knowledge of how to group data. That means group data, discuss the highs together, then discuss the lows. And then after that, in the fourth paragraph, which you can call the concluding paragraph, you can discuss the other figures that were not mentioned so far. I'd like us to start this without further ado. This is our paraphrase of the caption of the graph. Our paraphrase says, the graph is a depiction of the number of admissions in 5 hospitals in a European country within a period of 15 years spanning 2004 to 2018. I'd like to refer you to our immediate past video where I discussed the vocabulary of the intro, vocabulary of the first paragraph. That is the kind of words you are expected to use while writing the intro. I also discussed the vocabulary of the other 3 paragraphs that come after the intro. Now, having written the intro, we will write the overall. We will begin with the word overall. As soon as you become familiar with the word overall, you can always use some other word that has a similar meaning. Overall So what we have on the board represents the overview or the overall. It tells about what can be seen at a glance on the graph without really mentioning the figures like the years and the number of admissions. It tells us which values were rising and which were falling, which were the highs and which were the lows. Let us take a look at that second paragraph. It says, overall, the number of patients admitted into 3 hospitals. Badly, that is this. Stanton, that is this. And Adlin, that is this, maintained a steady rise throughout the survey period, while Oxley and Fordsmith hospitals, though their admission witnessed an initial rise, this soon began to drop and continued till the end of the study period. So that is the second paragraph. You can call that paragraph the first body paragraph. So we're now moving into the third paragraph, which you can also call the second body paragraph. All right, for want of board space, we will read what we've written in the third paragraph so that we can wipe a part of the board and continue. So it says, with regard to Badley Hospital, that is this hospital, Badley Hospital, the admission number stood at 200. That is this at the beginning of the survey. The beginning of the survey is 2004. But this soon climbed to around 275 in 2012. By 2012, that is at this point, it had climbed to around 275, which is still below 300 in 2012. By 2018, as the survey was ending, it had peaked. That means it has reached its highest point. That is the point in 2018. It had peaked at just below 300, making it the highest record of admission in the period. That is correct. The highest admission in the period is just below 300, possibly 290 or 295. Likewise, Adeline and Stanton hospitals, that is this Adeline and this Stanton. Likewise, Adeline and Stanton hospitals with startup admissions of about 125, here it's about 125, about 125 and 70, respectively. This point above 50 is around 70, respectively. In 2004, soon began So continuing from where we had stopped, it says Adeline and Stanton hospitals with startup admissions of about 125 and 70 respectively in 2004 soon began a dramatic increase, reaching the zenith of around 265. This point is measured as around 265 and 160. This point is measured as to be around 160 and 160 respectively when in 2018. So that brings the third paragraph, that is the second body paragraph, to an end, and we are now due to write the fourth, which is the last paragraph of the report. So we go on. And so the last paragraph says, on their part, Oxley and Forsyth hospitals began the survey impressively at just below 250 and 150 patients, but they could not sustain this. As the former plummeted. The former is Oxley Hospital. Plummeted to where? Plummeted to just below 150 patients. Plummeted to just above 50, and the latter just above 200 in 2018. So this last paragraph provides a comparison between the falling value of admissions in Oxley and Forsyth Hospital and the rising value of patients in the other hospitals that have been discussed. I hope you've enjoyed our class. If this is the case, then please like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. I look forward to meeting you in our next class. Bye-bye.